Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to an episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 66 today for the Singapore Grand Prix in Season 4. If you guys did miss the previous episode at Imola, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because, well, this season really has all the twists and turns. We had an exceptional race at Monza, winning that race in a great fashion, coming from, further back with the engine penalties, was thinking, okay, we've put those three back-to-back engine failures behind us. But the F1 universe, this lady luck of ours, just had one more disappointment for us, because we ended Imola prematurely. We finished the sprint, but we only made it past, what was it, like 2 laps, not even, of the full Grand Prix before we suffered our 4th engine failure in 5 races. This is truly unprecedented times in this game. From memory, I don't think I've had a single career mode on any F1 game where I've suffered 4 engine failures, let alone 3 in a row and then 4 in 5. And you never know. We really can't guarantee there may not be another one to come, because I thought we'd seen the last of it after Monza. We brought reliability upgrades to the car to try and fix some of the issues, and lo and behold, the engine went pop again. And again, it was a different component to the other time. So it's like the whole engine is slowly getting infected with this weird gremlin. So we continue to plow on then with purchasing some reliability upgrades to desperately try and stop any more failures, because we are in a position to still be fighting for the Drivers' Championship. The way Vettel's driving for us as a teammate, not being off the podium ever since he came back to our team at the Belgium Grand Prix, we're very much in the fight for the Constructors, and we're leading the way actually in those standings. But in the Drivers' Championship, we're still in it, but we just need to not have any more failures, and one more failure, and the wrong driver winning that race whilst I DNF could be the nail in the coffin. Like if Lando Norris, who leads the way right now, gets a win whilst I DNF in a future race, that's it. It's pretty much over then for us, probably. But we can't do much else apart from doing diligent work on the reliability side of things. So we've now got 2 new parts on the way on the durability side of things. You can see we're actually into the race weekend now for Singapore. We've earned more R&D points in practice to be able to purchase that second upgrade, because we just did that first one earlier, you would have seen. And we've still got those 2 ultimate upgrades on the aero on the way. And once those come in, that will be very handy, because as it stands, going into Singapore, we are now down to the 4th quickest car on the grid. We're just behind our sister team, Audi Sport, who have made some real big upgrades ever since the Italian Grand Prix, the first of the 2, of course. And then Red Bull also have made some minor upgrades to get ahead and get up into 2nd again on the R&D chart. Has still have that large advantage over us, but it's shrinking. And you got to think that once those 2 ultimate upgrades come in, that will be a massive booster for us, and could potentially be the last tangible upgrades we bring to the car as we focus on full reliability to try and make sure we don't have another DNF this season due to the engine going. You can see McLaren just clinging on just underneath Mercedes there, despite Lando Norris leading the championship. So again, kind of showing that maybe Lando is driving that extra level as an AI driver, dragging that car up, and that momentum and focus he's got maybe from due to leading the championship. But we now move our focus onto Singapore. Our car should be still pretty competitive around here, because we're only just under Audi Sport, the sister team, and also Red Bull as well. It'll just be about where Haas really is and everything, with that advantage they have now over the whole grid. But in terms of our components, I opted to go back in my pool of components, because the MGU-H was the component that failed at Imola. I had 2 of those components already fine and good to go. So instead of taking a penalty here at Singapore, I decided just to go back on myself to column number 2 for the MGU-H. Now, I did that because that's available. It's something I can do without a penalty. But also, I just get the feeling that getting new components, maybe that's playing into it, whether there's some sort of weird glitch or coding or just rotten luck, basically, with getting new components. I didn't want to tempt fate. So we're going to try our best now for the rest of the season just to remain in the same pool of components that we have already, and only if we absolutely have to get a new component if it's too worn to use in a full race condition. But you just can't make this stuff up. Of course, we have a near 3-minute fault at the start of qualifying with our car. Of course we do.
Right, I've got a little bit of an electrical problem at the moment. We're working on it, so don't worry. We're going to get you out there as soon as possible.
Yeah, you better, Mark. You better. And what did I say about coming on the radio? This we can manage in qualifying. This we can manage. But I swear to God, Mark, if you come on the radio once more and tell me there is maybe an issue and it results in an engine failure, you're out. I'm getting Jeff back in. I've got his number. And I'm going to tell Audi that's my decision. And I'm ultimately the team owner, so I'll do it. I'll get Jeff back in. Don't think I won't, okay? That's a warning. That's a warning. But anyway, we get into qualifying. Like I said, the car should be pretty competitive still. Obviously, we've still got that amazing raw engine power from this car. So around here at Singapore, that's going to help us with that compromise of wanting to add aero, being a street circuit. But also, there are some decent straights around Singapore, which you need to make the most of as well. We opted to do 2 consecutive runs around here, because I always find around Singapore and also Monaco as well, because the steering column is a bit different for these circuits because it's a street circuit. I always find I take a bit of time getting used to the slightly oversaturated rotation of the wheels. So we went for a second run in a row just to get a bit more into the car, into the circuit, and get in a groove, and that worked out for us because we go P3 in the end. But look at that, McLaren 1-2, despite them being down the R&D chart, below Merc, below Red Bull, but below us and Audi Sport and Haas. So showing that, I don't know, even despite that they're, technically maybe slow on paper, they've still got some raw pace in there, especially with Lando Norris when it comes to the races. But to see Gasly up there as well is quite surprising. But of course, it is only Q1. Sometimes it does throw up a few surprises because other people just don't get a lap in, get traffic or whatnot. So we go into Q2 then. We've gone straight out because rain has started to fall, and a decent amount of rain already, because there's actually quite a lot coming on the screen and on the chassis as well. I asked my engineer about it just to check if we're actually on the right tyre or it's too wet, and he said we are on the right compound right now on the dry. So it's that very weird crossover, and this might be a case of whoever gets across the line first will be the fastest, and then as you get further back of crossing the line, you'll be slower and slower. So right now, I believe Vettel, our teammate, is actually ahead of us. He's going to be the first man to cross the line. I might be the second person to cross the line, or maybe the third. I think there's maybe someone in between us, because Vettel, there he goes, purple lap time. And everyone behind me now is racing and driving on a wetter circuit than I am, and I'm on a wetter circuit than Vettel. So we go across the line, we go slower then Vettel, considerably slower, but everyone else went even worse because it was raining already. The track was only just getting worse and worse. So that was the complete correct decision to go straight out the box. Vettel and me, we played that to an absolute perfection, basically, to get a 1-2 there in Q2 to make it through to the top 10 shootout. Both the McLarens make it through. Both Haas cars only just scrape through. So operationally, you can see even though Haas are the best team now, they still have some things to learn because they only just made it through. Saying that though, big old Red Bull, they fluffed it. Albon's out of Q2 and also Tsunoda. Albon went out far too late. Tsunoda went so late that he was on intermediate. Liam Lawson's done amazingly in the Andretti to make it through into the top 10. Verstappen as well, but he's got a 10th place penalty. And then both cars of our sister team, Audi Sport, make it through. So topsy-turvy qualifying day here in Singapore with the rain catching people out in Q2. But as we're here now on our flying lap in Q3 on intermediates, I kind of got deja vu from the Japanese Grand Prix from last season and feel like I might have been caught out now by the rain because this car felt awful on the intermediates. Like, I could not get any turn in. I had to go so delicate through the last bend. So even though everyone set times on intermediates ahead of me, and I went for a consecutive run because I thought, oh, maybe it's just me. Maybe I need to just go a bit more aggressive into the corners. But no, the car just did not have any grip out there. And I feel like the rain has actually gotten heavier to the point where technically it's time for heavy full wet tyres, the blue wall, but because all of us went out on inters, I kind of got duped into thinking we're on the right tyre. But essentially, I've done the mistake that other people did in Q2. I went too late out on the circuit onto intermediate, just that little bit too late, and others have gone quicker. No one set a time on full wets because in the last 5 minutes we all just sat in the garage because it was too wet, it was heavy rain, and so we actually end qualifying with a bit of a howler and disaster from my side, because look how slow I was on those inters, but that's because it was time for full wets. And like in Q2, Sebastian Vettel went out early enough. He didn't quite get P1. Robert Schwartzman is able to get another pole position. So despite Drogovic being the two-time race winner for Haas this season, Schwartzman showing he's actually got the better qualifying pace maybe over one lap versus his Brazilian teammate. Vettel does great to be on the second row though, so that's great for our team at least. Lando Norris though, the championship leader, up in third. That's going to be a bit of a worry for me to come back through from P10, but at least Albon's behind me, but we've got Drogovic and Vettel ahead of me, and they're both, mathematically now in the title race, I guess you could say. So we definitely need to step it up a little bit in the race. We've been beaten by both McLarens, even got beat by Liam Lawson, the Andretti. So yeah, big howler for us in Q3. We've got some making up to do in the race. Let's go. It's going to be a long one though, so plenty of time to make up for it. Let's go to the Singapore GP.
Against the spectacular backdrop of the Singapore skyline, Formula One returns once again to do battle in what tends to become something of an endurance race, with the notorious sauna-like temperatures in the cockpit making for an extremely physically challenging race. We're here at the Marina Bay Street Circuit today, located in the heart of Singapore. The circuit consists of 23 corners, 13 to the left and 10 to the right. It's a track that's incredibly technical, so don't expect to see the drivers taking too much of it at full throttle. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Robert Schwartzman lines up on pole position, and starting alongside in P2 is Sebastian Vettel. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Norris, Drogovic, Carlos Sainz and Gasly, Bottas, Liam Lawson, the owner driver and George Russell, Albon, Leclerc, Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Sergio Perez and Mick Schumacher, Oscar Piastri, Stroll, Ocon and Théo Pourchaire. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And joining me again for the race today, Natalie Pinkham. We should talk about Williams. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within the team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do. And that has definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
So we've got a little bit of work to do now from P9 on the grid. We got elevated by one position because Verstappen, of course, actually in Q2, we found out, had a penalty. So he moves out of the top 10 and Russell moves into it. We've got our teammate Vettel on the front row alongside Schwartzman, the championship leader, on the second row alongside Felipe Drogovic. So plenty of cars we're aiming for to try and overtake to gain points in this championship as we enter kind of the last third of this season, and we're getting towards crunch time, and that makes me even more nervous about how this race is going to go in terms of, I really hope this engine holds through, because after last episode, after Monza, I was confident, and then Imola happened, and that confidence has been wiped, and I'm as nervous as I was at Monza about the engine holding through. And like Monza, we have to make our way through some cars to get towards even a podium here. So let's hope we can try and find the same sort of success, maybe at Monza. It's going to be difficult though because the Haas cars are very quick. Vettel's in fine form, and Lando Norris just seems to be always there in the McLaren. But generally speaking, I always enjoy the Singapore Grand Prix, so looking forward to this one. No rain involved, thankfully, so it's going to be a dry race, and it looks like all of us are starting on the medium tyres, so very similar strategy. So it's going to be all about the genuine race pace today as we go to 5 red lights to the Singapore Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go. It's a cracking start for Liam Lawson. Slow one for Gasly in the McLaren into turn 1. We're dive bombed by the Mercedes, trying to get down the inside of Lawson, round the outside of both of them, giving them some room, but we've been tapped! We've been tapped by Lawson, I think it was, and we almost got put into the wall. I felt a distinct bit of contact on the rear left. The rear end was stepping out. I had to correct myself to try and stop the car veering into the wall, and just like that, we've been dealt a heavy blow. There's no damage to the front wing, no damage to the rear of the car, but we're now in stone dead last. That's not how it was meant to go, and this is why it went that way. So the Mercedes on the inside of Lawson pressurizes him. That's the contact, and actually is enough contact to break Lawson's front wing. That's how you know it was a severe amount of contact to actually break his wing, and that's how close we were to breaking our front wing. I actually, if I do say so myself, I think we did amazingly to somehow slow that down and not just crash straight into the wall and either be out of this race or be at the back without a front wing. But that hefty bit of contact with Lawson has cost us dearly in a race where we were already behind a lot of our championship contenders. So now it's all about a comeback drive from last place on the grid. We've got Lance Stroll, we got Esteban Ocon into the hairpin, and now we'll try and get the upper chair as Lawson comes in now for that damage to his front wing. We're now up into P18, making good progress, and of course such is the pace difference of our car versus all these cars around, and it, you know, that includes the Ferrari guys, as they've had a horrendous season this year, really one to forget completely. It's been a nosedive of form for the famous F1 team in red as we get Mick Schumacher, and now going for a move on Oscar Piastri on the inside in Sector 2 up into P16, and now we come to the Renaults, the guys who are actually annoying us, of course, at the start of this season. Even Renault have had a bit of a dive bomb of performance really this season, not keeping pace with their rivals around them in the R&D chart, and we make light work of Max Verstappen, and now have a go at the Porsche Williams of Magnussen, trying his best to stay ahead of Verstappen and keeping the fight with Alonso and Perez ahead. They're side by side. They're having a good squabble. Fernando on the inside, ever the fighter he is, and he's going to get to the inside, but Perez, showing the Renault clearly has just that better downforce level mid-corner to go round the outside. We're going to now try and overtake Alonso. He's going to give us a big old squeeze there. Alonso playing it harsh but fair as well. But we do overtake him up into P13, and now setting our sights on Sergio Perez. Couldn't quite get him into that left-hander, so we have to wait until the end of that lap into the next one to go down the inside at turn 1. Use that engine power, a little bit wide, but Perez also went wide himself as well, and so therefore I think nothing of it, and we're up into P12. Now, this is a lot of clean air ahead of us. 4.4 seconds to try and bridge to Leclerc. And 3 laps later, we've done it, but with thanks to that man on the left, Tsunoda, he was on the soft tyres like Perez, and essentially his soft tyres were wearing out so much that he was holding up Leclerc. So if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have caught Leclerc at that rate that I did in 3 laps to bridge 4.4 seconds. But we did. We made easy work of it on the inside, and we're up into now P10, as that is Lawson making his second mistake of the day. He crashes in the same place we see so many drivers make a mistake in real life, under the bridge in Sector 3, and there's so much debris that the safety car is now out. Schwartzman still leads the way from his pole position. Vettel in second place. Drogovic has got up into third ahead of Lando Norris. And then it's Sainz, Gasly, Bottas, so a checkerboard, and McLaren to Audi Sport. And Audi Sport showing their upgrades are working well as they're both firmly in the top 10 there, ahead of the Mercedes and the Red Bull. As speaking of, Albon, P9 only. Tsunoda down the order with a very weird strategy, starting on soft. So Red Bull, despite now being once again the second best team on the grid, they're now operationally just not making the most of their car. They're really really, they're really bottling this. Under the safety car here, though, in the last sector, I was debating coming in, and I've decided I'm going to be making a free pit stop under the safety car. I'm going to go onto hard tyres. It's lap 8. It's very early. The strategy was anyway mediums to hards, but the pit stop usually is around lap 14, 13, maybe at earliest, but in the range of 14 to 16 usually. So this is a very early pit stop onto hards, but this is the only way I can see us coming back and getting anywhere near the likes of Lando, Drogovic, Vettel, Schwartzman. It's the only way we're going to maybe get to the top 5 and try and at least limit the damage of our rivals in the championship. If not, maybe, hopefully, I'm hoping, for my sake, being able to get 1 or 2 of them with this strategy. Because, of course, we'll all bunch up under the safety car. I won't have to make another pit stop this entire race, whereas everyone else, most of the grid that hasn't come in from those mediums, they still have to make their first and only stop of the race. So we're hopefully going to be in a position at least to get track position later in the race and defend from the cars coming back at us. But ahead of us, Tsunoda closing up on Schumacher. Schumacher with a big lockup, and he actually sends me wide because I had to take avoiding action because I was tucked up right behind Tsunoda, and so to avoid contact, then Perez swipes across and we lift off again just to make sure we don't make any contact. And I'm taking this very delicately because the whole point of this strategy is I need to go to the end, so it's no use being on the hards if I get damage now, as we now face Lawson, who, like Alonso, squeezes me to the wall there, but we're going to squeeze him back, get down the inside of Sergio Perez, get the elbows out, and get back up into P20. Now, I know it looks like, oh, we're right at the back again, but this is the long-term play, and if this works, this could be a 300 IQ strategy to get us back into the race as we weave around to try and desperately get some heat and some kind of rubbering in of these tyres, basically, because these hards take a few laps to really warm up. And as you can clearly see there by that oversteer, but Tsunoda held up by Schumacher. Can we go around the outside? Oh, Tsunoda hits us. He makes contact, gets the elbows out. I think he maybe got on the curb a little bit, but now I ask my engineer again if I've got damage, of course, simulation damage in this entire series on this game. So very worried about the state of the front wing, but no, it's fine. No damage there. It was tyre-to-tyre contact. Tsunoda there, I don't know, maybe he was trying to be over-aggressive to protect his teammate Albon and just be a good teammate, or just simply, I think, got on the curb, I don't know, but we get him eventually, and we do get Schumacher easily into turn 1. Again, there was more contact with Schumacher into turn 1 as he pinched me into the inside, so we are constantly asking about damage, because you can see I'm in a bit of state of paranoia, basically, because I need this car to be in perfect condition for this strategy to work, because we need to be getting through these cars, and then ultimately we need to have enough pace and clean air to try and negate the speed that eventually the rest of the guys are going to have on fresher tyres later on. But we make easy work of Lance Stroll, and we will do on Theo Pourchaire, of course. Aston Martin, one of the slowest cars on this grid, but Pourchaire puts up a good defence. We go from right to left, and we're playing the patient game into turn 1 to get the move done into P15 now, and now chasing after Piastri and Alonso. Then I think there's a bigger gap. Yeah, there is. There's a bigger gap then after Alonso, so that may be the last of my overtakes once we get these two, and then it's a case of trying to go as quick as we can on the hard tyres to give ourselves as big of a gap as we can once everyone else comes in for their first pit stop. So Piastri for the second time is overtaken by us, and now we again are on the back of Fernando Alonso in this same section in sector 1. Is he going to squeeze us again into that wall? DRS open, plenty of battery. Alonso sticks left, and again with this squeeze, we squeeze him back. It is always a very interesting fight with Alonso. He outbrakes us, we switch back, and it's a beautiful little bit of choreography between myself and Fernando. But we get up into P13, and now we are in clean air. And lap 14, like I said, what did I say? Now is the time that everyone is coming in from the mediums, and we overtake the likes of Sainz, Schwartzman, who is leading this race, remember. So we are ahead of the net race leader, which means we are going to become the net race leader once the remaining guys come in for their pit stops. Lap 15 onto 16, Vettel is in and the remainder are in. Schwartzman has an engine failure, I think. He's out this session, or maybe it's a crash, I don't know. But that's gutting for the man who is leading this race the whole time up to this point. It's an engine failure. That is such torrid luck. He's had 2 pole positions in this improved Haas, but he is yet to get anywhere near the 2 race wins his teammate has got. Vettel, here he was in the pits. He's been jumped by Drogovic. This is another replay as well, so obviously at this point I've passed both of them. I'm in the lead, but Vettel was ahead of Drogovic behind Schwartzman before the pit stops, and Drogovic, the Haas team, have done some brilliant work with their pit stop, very quick pit stop, and they've jumped Vettel. So Tsunoda, Perez, Lawson are with me in the top 4. Tsunoda, Perez, they're on a 2-stop. Lawson is with me on a set of hards, but he's in an Andretti, so I'm sure he'll get overtaken. So the race is going to be how quickly can Drogovic, Vettel, maybe even Lando Norris there, who's also quite close to Vettel actually, surprisingly, in the McLaren. How quickly can them 3 get past Lawson, Perez and Tsunoda, and then how quickly can they bridge the 5.2 second gap to me by the end of this race? Because remember, I pit a good 8 laps before these guys, so that's a lot of pace in their fresher hard tyres to catch me up. So now it's about going as fast as we can and hoping that Lawson and others can hold up these guys, but eventually Drogovic is going to make a great move. He faked to the left, went to the right, got the move done, and he's up into P4 and now can try and chase after Perez and Tsunoda. Vettel now looking to try and pass Lawson and not lose too much time to keep on the back of the Brazilian for what would be effectively a net P3 eventually once they get through the traffic. Vettel, really good move, very aggressive, so aggressive that he makes contact with Lawson, and Lawson has more front wing damage. But I like to think that was Vettel's way of saying this was for hitting my teammate on lap 1. At least that's what I like to think that was, with Vettel being very aggressive there with his move. Lap 19 now, Drogovic on the back of Perez again, going from the left to right, making that outside move. He's loving that pass on this left-hander, and he's going to sail around. Perez gives him a bit more of a fight than Lawson did and might just keep it through. No, he doesn't. Such is the pace of that Haas. He sails through into P3 and now can go after Tsunoda. But of course, Tsunoda and Perez, they're going to come in anyway because they're on a 2-stop. So it's a bit of a futile effort for these guys to be fighting Vettel and Drogovic. But of course, they've got a race to run on their own. So Vettel is going to get held up a little bit by Perez here. Will he be able to make a move off this hairpin? Eventually they'll come in though, so no matter what, Vettel will get up into P3, Drogovic will be up into P2, and by the end of that lap, that's what's going to happen, because Tsunoda comes in on that lap, Drogovic through the last 2 corners, up into P2 now, Vettel in the background in P3, Lando Norris, he's been overtaken by Sainz. So Sainz is the one that gets up into P4, Lando's up in P5 with Gasly P6, and there we are. 5.6 seconds ahead of Drogovic in the lead of this race, but now it's just a matter of when Drogovic will catch up to us, and that when is going to be about 4 laps later at the end of lap 23. Such is the pace difference of those fresher hard tyres, the out-and-out pace of the Haas, and so here comes Drogovic, despite us deploying all the battery. Look how quick he is in a straight line. We squeeze him to the inside. He goes for a kamikaze dive, goes off circuit, and through goes Sebastian Vettel. Oh, it's a stonking effort by the reigning world champion, remember. The 5-time champ now leads this Singapore Grand Prix. Myself and Drogovic, we've tripped up over each other, and we're now down to P3. To be fair, inevitably, I would have been overtaken by Drogovic and Vettel. So to be honest, I'm not too annoyed by what just happened, because effectively, that fighting with Drogovic has helped my teammate get P1, which is obviously more points for us in the constructors. So what I need to worry about now, because they were always going to overtake me, because they had way too much pace, because they still had 7 laps left to overtake me if they didn't do that on that lap. But what I've got to worry about is Sainz and the others behind. But this is a replay then of Drogovic. So we squeeze him to the inside. He just goes for a really late move and basically just outbrakes himself, goes wide, and that's Vettel flying through. This is the onboard from Vettel. So there we're squabbling. We both go deep into the corner, and then, oh, as smooth as you like, Sebastian Vettel up into P1. But this is now the real battle that we were concerned with, because like I said, Vettel and Drogovic, they were always going to overtake us, because look at this, lap 29 onto 30. They're now nearly 8 seconds ahead of me, so they had too much pace for me. But this is what I was fighting for, the chance to still manage to get onto the podium from last place, going with that free pit stop since lap 8. I've been on these tyres, so they're pretty damn worn, and we're making sure we're saving ERS to stay ahead of our old teammate, Carlos Sainz. Is he going to inflict more pain on us this season by overtaking us and losing us a couple of more points? We go into the last lap of the Grand Prix. He's very close to us. He's within 1 second. He's got DRS. The Vettel's now nearly 10 seconds ahead of me. Drogovic is staying close behind, but it looks like Vettel may just get this from that fighting going on before. But for me, can I stay ahead of Sainz? Can I remain on the podium? He's half a second behind me. We've saved a lot of ERS, just especially for this lap alone, to use the battery all the way down the straights and try and stay ahead of our sister Audi team as we get on to the last sector. The tyres are really slow now. Sainz is now 3 to 4 tenths behind us. Sebastian Vettel, though, wins in Singapore. He is the lion at Singapore. He loves this circuit, and he's won it here again. Drogovic second place, and we do manage to hold on to a fantastic P3 from last place on lap 1. The 300 IQ strategy play, pitting under the safety car, going from lap 8 to lap 31 on hards. It's worked out for us.
What a great race it's been then. Another classic Singapore Grand Prix. And they've held on to take the checkered flag here today. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, I honestly feel it was down to the driver and car today. I mean, we could talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of having both an excellent driver and an incredible car, that's when you see results like those that we've witnessed today.
The faces on our top 3 look so incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory and a brilliant performance from them all.
Well, he's not been off the podium since he returned to our team, and now the reigning world champion secures his 2nd win of this season. He's won an F1 race this season with both Audi teams. He won the first race with Audi Sport, and now he's won it with Martini, Audi, AAR, F1. You love to see it. I mean, just showing how much of a reinvigorated man this guy has been since coming to our team first last season in season 3. Great to see. Obviously for the team it's excellent in terms of getting a double podium and getting more points for Vettel being first rather than second. Obviously Drogovic looked very strong for the win there, but let's not forget Schwartzman was leading most of the race until that DNF, so let's pull one out for him, because I think he may have gone on to actually win this race if it wasn't for that DNF. But because of Vettel's win and Drogovic's 2nd place, Vettel is now only a couple of points behind me in the championship. 11 points off Lando. I'm 8 points off Lando, and Drogovic is closing up to Alexander Albon. So this is legitimately... Vettel's legitimately forced himself into the title fight, and Drogovic, if he was to win another race or just keep up the podiums, he could also be in the fight with Albon and Red Bull really falling off the cliff a little bit in recent races. So this championship landscape is changing very rapidly from Lando, Albon and myself to Lando, myself, maybe Vettel, Drogovic as well, and also Albon if he could maybe just get a bit more consistency. I don't know. So this is getting very interesting, and this is going in a very different direction to what I thought it was going to be in the first half of this season. Like I said, that double podium helps out a lot in the Constructors' Championship to pull away from McLaren, who get ahead of Red Bull. Despite them going lower in the R&D chart, McLaren are actually continuing to climb up in the points, and Red Bull's poor operation is seeing them go down to 3rd place. I reckon Haas, if they continue as they are, and Red Bull continue as they are, I reckon Haas could snag third place in the championship. That'd be insane for them as a constructor. But in the Drivers' Championship, this is hotting up. We have seen the Vettel from Season 3, not off the podium since he's in our team, and he had too much pace for me today. All the signs are coming, unfortunately, again, that we're seeing that same strong Vettel. The only difference is, though, this season, I back myself. I think I am quicker in this car than I was in Season 3. So we are ready to take the fight to Vettel, to Lando, to Drogovic, Albon, whoever we need to, because the engine did survive this race. We got a great podium from last place, and we roll on the next one of my favourite races on the calendar, the Canadian GP. So till then, guys, if you have enjoyed it, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.